Well, welcome to Maywood, or as we know it by its formal name, the Elwood H. May Environmental Park here in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. It's a gorgeous fall day, and as you can see, some of the colors are changing. The queen of all of the deciduous trees, the sugar maple, right next to me, has all three colors of red, orange, and yellow, all in the same tree. Well, Maywood over the years, from its very beginning here in Sheboygan in 1983, has transformed into quite the special place. And today's video is all about those transformations that have taken it from the home of Mr. and Mrs. May to what it is today as an environmental center for the public. I hope you enjoy looking at all of the changes in the habitats that have resulted over the last 30 to 40 years.
The original farmstead at 3615 Miller Road was owned by Martin Yuckham and was later sold to Elwood H. May, who then gave the property to the city of Sheboygan in 1974. After Mr. May's gift of his home and 119 acres was determined to be an environmental park, work began on land restoration and planting a prairie. The process of converting an old farm field into a prairie begins by working up that farm field and then spreading lots of prairie seed out onto the field with help from volunteers. Raking in the seed is the next step, and finally having patience enough to wait for those prairie plants to come up, oftentimes 3 years later. Purple coneflower is one of the first to emerge, quickly followed by lots and lots of other wildflowers and grasses. Today, our trails are lined by these beautiful 8-foot tall big blue stem grasses that cover the majority of the prairie.
During the 1950s, the construction of the May home was underway, and this would have been the front door where their guests would have arrived and gone on in for an evening of entertainment, or possibly to just discuss with Mr. May his raising of the black Angus cattle that he had on the property. I thought we'd give you a little sneak peek and wander into the building and show you the before and now scenes of what this house has been made into. So let's go on inside.
The home of Mr. and Mrs. May was a beautiful house with lots of living space that was adapted for public programming for adults, families, and students. Bedrooms were converted to office space, and the 2 fireplaces provided a wonderful backdrop for many activities. Although there are a few dated remnants remaining, they serve as a reminder of the generosity and civic-mindedness of the Mays. Although the Mays loved to entertain guests, their home now serves to educate people of all ages about our natural world. Programs of all kinds have been held at Maywood over the years, and the rooms that still house many of the original features work quite nicely for all ages, from young kids to adults to families. As mentioned, the bedrooms now serve as offices for the staff at Maywood. And even the bathrooms are currently being utilized as they were originally. The kitchen has probably been changed the least and still serves to function as a kitchen and provide us with the opportunity to make meals with our programs. The cabinets and paneling of the original house now have been lined with exhibits for all to enjoy. And even the original entryway coming into the house, which has this wonderful fireplace, is still being used in that same capacity as a host for lots of little kids and programs as well. The fireplace that you see pictured here has lots of fossils in it and can be used in some of our geology programs. The original paneling that you see behind the ladies here is still in existence today. This room serves as a great spot for watching birds out the windows at the bird feeders that are only a few feet away. The dining room, well, no longer a dining room anymore for us. It's been converted to office spaces and becomes far more functional.
In the mid to late 1990s, it was evident that using the living room of Mr. and Mrs. May for school programs and other public events was just not sufficient for our needs here at Maywood. So in 2006, this wonderful building addition was attached to their original home. And today we have thousands upon thousands of school groups, as well as people from the general public coming for environmental programs of all kinds here at Maywood. Let's go on in and take a look around.
An addition to the May home was a major step forward in making a public ecology center from a private residence. The lobby and its annual exhibits also has an information desk and a nature store. The Hyson Pavilion enables large groups to meet and provides enough space for the many students that visit annually. Years of fundraising finally resulted in breaking ground in 2005. If you look around in the lobby, you'll see lots of exhibits up on the walls of animals that represent Wisconsin. If you open up the doors into the pavilion, you'll notice the seating and the large screen that we have for doing programs. And the programs that we have vary from seasonal events to yoga classes to our annual Earth Ride and many, many other types of programs that we have throughout the year. Even the lower level of our building has capacity for hosting lots of programs, and today it actually hosts our nature-based preschool. So 4-year-olds are here every day of the week, in and out of the building, but spending the majority of their time outdoors, learning about nature and finding out all of the cool things that can be found in the outdoors. Nature has many lessons to teach us, regardless of the season. Get out and enjoy it just like our preschoolers do.
In 1983, when this property became Maywood, one thing that was evident on the property is there was a gorgeous maple syrup or maple sugaring woods, perfect for collecting sap, making maple syrup. And so the sugar house was developed back in the mid-1980s using an existing garage that the Mays had here. We had a pan inside the garage that would allow us to boil 100 gallons of sap at a time. However, as of this year, we are in the process of converting over to a much more modern system that will allow us to cook syrup and sap at a much faster rate and come out with a much better product in the end. Very excited about that. So if you'd like to get some real Maywood maple syrup, stay tuned for that this coming spring.
In general, it's fourth graders that usually come out for maple sugaring. However, I think everyone is curious about the process. It all begins with tapping trees, hanging bags and buckets, and collecting lots and lots of sap. That sap then is taken over to the sugar house, put into a large pan, and boiled until it converts to syrup. The month of March is when we collect the sap and boil it down to make it into maple syrup. But as the seasons change and we get further along into summer and fall, there's lots of other things that happen in the maple forest. Certainly with sugar maples, they are the queens of color and turn red, yellow, and orange. Fall is a spectacular time at Maywood and is evidenced by the sugar maple trees that we have here.
In 1988, even though it wasn't on our master plan for the site, one of the things that we talked about and decided to implement was to build some ponds here at Maywood. We of course have the beautiful Pigeon River flowing through the property, but we really wanted to have some ponds so that we could do aquatic environmental classes and have kids sample the ponds to see what was living in them. And behind me are two ponds that we built in 1988. We tapped into a spring on the hillside, providing the source of the water, and digging a 15-foot hole and a 5-foot hole in order to locate the ponds at those spots with the spring water flowing in. Today, with all of the changes and successional changes that have happened to the ponds, we now have lots of fish, turtles, and frogs utilizing our ponds, making for a wonderful biological study for students of all ages.
Pond construction was truly an amazing development. Going from old field to aquatic environment was truly incredible. The ponds as they were being constructed were simply two holes with water filling in. And a year later, there were fish in the ponds, surprisingly getting into the ponds with the help of wading birds such as great blue herons that would carry the eggs of fish and frogs, and as they landed in our ponds, those eggs would wash off, and voila, we would have fish. Today you can visit the ponds, learn quite a bit. There are some interpretive signage as well, so you can study and learn from the aquatics that have developed in our pond environment. Going down to the ponds at this time of the year is a great experience because you have a fabulous backdrop of our maple forest with all of its colors behind. The ponds are adjacent to the Pigeon River, and there are remnants of when Mr. May had bridges going across the river that you can explore. However, we like to look at the ponds and the river and compare the two to see what lives in fast-moving water like the Pigeon River and what lives in still water like the ponds. Doing an aquatic survey can reveal all kinds of fabulous things about what lives in these different environments. When we look at the Pigeon River as it was years ago, Mr. May had attempted to bridge the river many times. Each time its bridges would be taken out by spring flooding and ice. An engineered bridge was built in the early 1980s that spans the Pigeon River to this day. It's much higher than what Mr. May had built, and giant boulders protect the uprights that hold that bridge in place. Regardless of the season, the bridge connects you to the land on the other side of the Pigeon River and enables you to explore 135 acres and even get into Evergreen Park. But just standing at the bridge and looking down, you can oftentimes see into the water, and you can see fish running, and you can see ducks and great blue herons, green herons, sometimes even a mink, or, if you're lucky, an otter. The Pigeon River has many mysteries and many great discoveries that abound. You need to get down to the river and the ponds and check it out. In addition to exploring the river, you might want to also explore some of the gardens that we have here at Maywood. The rain garden collects runoff from our roof surface and collects it in a basin that grows plants that thrive and survive quite well in a wet environment. We also have the hummingbird garden, where you can wander out and see lots of butterflies as well as our native ruby-throated hummingbird. The Arboretum is a great place to see examples of native Wisconsin trees, many of which are labeled to make it easy for you to identify them. Exploring a little bit further, you'll find many other areas that are fantastic habitats to check out. Besides the ponds, besides the prairie, there are many spaces that you need to see in this 135-acre jewel.
If you come out to Maywood, there are always lots of things to do. And at this kiosk, we do have a map that you can reference to find out about the many trails that work their way through the 135 acres that we have here at Maywood. Cross-country skiing and snowshoeing are very popular during the winter. Birding is popular year-round. And of course, hiking has always been popular for those that just want to get out and explore. Check out the trail, check out the maps right here, and make it your own.